Hi, I'm Peter Burris with Wikibon, and welcome to this CUBE conversation with Fortinet's Aamir Lakhani. Aamir is a world-renowned cybersecurity expert and lead researcher at Fortinet, and is known in the Black Hat world as Dr. Chaos. Aamir, thanks very much for joining us today.
Thank you, glad to be here.
So I'm in our Palo Alto studios, Aamir's in Houston, Texas. Aamir, how do we move from a world where the issues associated with cybersecurity were really pertinent and relevant to a few, to an increasing emphasis across business and the concerns about cybersecurity, and how is that expertise becoming increasingly relevant to business today?
Wow, that's a very interesting question. The best I can say is it's a brave new world today. I mean, if you think about it today, everything is connected and interconnected to the net, from our homes to our cars to our TVs. It's a smart world, as everyone says. And because of that, there's a lot of opportunity not only to be connected, but also a lot of opportunity for attackers to exploit systems, use these systems as launching pads to gain access to more important information. And we're seeing that all over the place. When I started off my career, it used to be that security experts were really the guys that knew how to configure the vendor boxes the best that they knew how to. They got the certifications from the vendors, they had the best practices from the vendors. And somewhere along the line, someone realized that, hey, it's going to be a good idea to actually test the security and pretend like we're the bad guys. And that's where the evolution of, I think, penetration testing as well as the red team and offensive security came into play, where the good guys are now actually writing bad code, trying to be the hackers and trying to guess what the hackers are going to do before they even do it. And I think that's where we're at today. And the reason we're there is there's a lot of opportunity with a lot of devices everywhere that's interconnected.
So in many respects, we've moved from a world in which security was a feature of the products we purchased to where today, security really is an asset, and it's an asset that the external world, especially the bad guys, are constantly trying to erode for the business. We've seen some actual resources emerge in the cybersecurity world, like the dark net, for example, that has many purposes. It might be used in certain countries as a way of circumnavigating limitations on privacy or access to different sources of information, but it's clearly also being used by nefarious individuals to at least plan and set up nefarious acts. Take us through the role that the dark net is playing today in the changing landscape of cybersecurity.
Exactly. I mean, the first thing to explain is the darknet is almost an immediate term, because what it means a variety of different things. First of all, in its most basic form, what it means is it's all the information that Google doesn't have, that you can't do a Google search for, and that could include ISPs, it could include forums. But what most people talk about when they talk about the darknet is what we call the Tor network, or the onion routing network, which is basically a specialized network that you need specialized software to gain access to, and you need to know where to go. It's not just that you Google search for something. You actually have to have places that you need to go to. That really is today what is the darknet. Now there are other aspects to the darknet. There's other peer-to-peer networks, but really it's a hidden network, and that's kind of the evolution of the darknet.
So if we think about the role that the darknet's playing, it's not so much that a business itself will operate on the darknet, but it needs, at some point in time, visibility into some of the activities that are being performed in the darknet, because darknet activities turn into surface net problems for enterprises if they're not smart about their cybersecurity practices, policies, and approaches. Tell us a little bit about some of the manifestations of darknet activities that are hidden, that suddenly become hidden when you don't want them to, and manifest themselves as cybersecurity problems.
Exactly. One of the things that we have on the darknet is this concept called ghost markets. And what a ghost market is think of a black market. But a black market, sells goods and services that could be illegal. A ghost market is very similar, except that it's a very I would say transparent, or it could be a market that may not be up for a long time. It could be here one day and it could disappear the next day, and that's why it's called a ghost market. Now, what you find on these ghost markets, one of the more popular ghost markets that was in the media was Silk Roads. You essentially can find anything you want. Now, most of the time, they're selling illegal drugs, yeah, anything you can think of. But there's other things that they sell on ghost markets as well, such as exploit kits, cyber zero-day attacks, credit cards, a lot of credit cards, account numbers, account passwords for anything you can think of, like Netflix or HBO or anything that's out there. And on top of that, there's a lot of forums that hackers participate in. Sometimes a hacker may say, "Hey, I'm just interested in learning how to create ransomware. How do I create ransomware?" And someone will say, "Well, this is how you do it. This is a ransomware kit. Or by the way, I can create ransomware for you and charge you some money." And other times, hackers are very specific. They're like, "I really don't like company AB and ABC.com. I want to attack them. Can anyone help me?" And you will find intelligence based on that. We monitor companies all the time, and we know sometimes before they're going to get attacked because there's a lot of chatter on the dark net about that.
So we have this dark net in which individuals can be anonymous, and that anonymity buys them the opportunity to do some, again, bad things. But you mentioned something interesting. You noted this notion of a ghost market. All markets feature some sort of mechanism for actually handling transactions, for remunerating exchanges, money. But money is not anonymous, at least not with credit cards. How are some of the cryptocurrencies playing a role here in mediating these exchanges in the dark net? Let's start there, and then we'll get into some other factors associated with cryptocurrencies and how they're important enterprises. Let's start with that one.
Yeah, so first, you're right. Everyone wants to buy and sell something off the dark net. And at first, when this was first coming into play, these ghost markets, back in the day, people used to use things like gift cards and reloaded cards and web money. And, those things really didn't last. And really, what exploded on the dark net, what became the de facto currency on the dark net was Bitcoins. And that's how people started transacting. With bitcoins, in my opinion, my personal opinion, is I think that's one of the reasons why bitcoins really took off. Now bitcoins, unlike popular belief, they're not really anonymous. There is a public ledger that keeps track of all the transactions taking place. So there are other cryptocurrencies that are coming into play that offer more, that are more anonymous. Monero, for example, is not a new cryptocurrency, but a popular cryptocurrency that's coming into play in the dark market. In fact, one of the largest dark markets, ghost markets, today called the Dream Market on the darknet, announced that they are going to start accepting Monero. So because of that, I personally believe Monero is going to start like gaining more and more popularity because now the bad guys, now the criminals are actually using it. It's worth value to them, and they're going to start exchanging information. And of course, with these cryptocurrencies, you can always take it to some sort of exchange, and you can also launder these currencies and maybe even trade it in for real cash.
So many people talk about the need to expect the best but plan for the worst. And a lot of enterprises today need to start being more planful about what to do in the event that they encounter a problem. So for example, some of their data gets stolen and they end up with some ransomware. That leads me to ask you the question, should firms actually start thinking about creating reserves of some of these currencies? Should they find themselves being attacked?
So first of all, I do think it makes sense for firms to at least understand, how cryptocurrency works. Now, I would never promote suggest that firms pay a ransom in any type of manner because obviously I think it just encourages and drives the cyber criminal underground, and we've seen that. In fact, in these forums, in these darknet forums. There are attackers out there that say, "Hey, I've attacked this firm or I've targeted this industry, and they're well known to pay, so let's go after them." The healthcare industry is a good example of that. Obviously, for various reasons, the healthcare industry can take very little downtime. I mean, there's medical, concerns, people's lives and concerns. So generally, they'd be known to pay for ransomware, and that's documented all over the dark web. So people actually encourage other attackers to go after the healthcare. Just getting back to your question, you know, one of the last things that you want to be in a situation is you don't want to ever want to be in the situation where you have to come up and understand how cryptocurrency works and try and learn it on the fly
Right.
while while your entire systems are down, while your networks are being held hostage. So for that reason, I would absolutely recommend, at least to my customers, hey, learn about cryptocurrency, how it works, what the upside and what the bad side is. Obviously, in today's market, there's a lot of volatility in cryptocurrency because it's not being held or traded like currency. It's being held more like a resource, like gold. You know, people are investing into it. It's becoming something like a stock market of futures. And but I think customers need to, and the general public probably needs to learn about how exactly that works, because there's a lot of misconceptions in cryptocurrency today.
So you mentioned that perhaps they shouldn't have a reserve of cryptocurrency because we don't want to encourage anybody to pay for it or once you pay, you put a target on your back as someone who's willing to pay. But you also mentioned that firms have to learn something about cryptocurrencies in advance of actually having a problem. What is a good, high quality, world class stance for an enterprise relative to cryptocurrency? What are, say, the 2 or 3 points that you would suggest CEO, board of directors worry about, and what do they need to really understand now as part of their cryptocurrency stance? What do you think?
Well, for cryptocurrency specifically, I think businesses really need to understand the volatility of it. It is a face-based currency. What does that exactly mean? Who's backing that up? How does it derive its value? I think those are very important questions. I do have clients that actually do hold very large reserves of cryptocurrency for various reasons, not only for cybersecurity reasons, but also potentially for investment reasons as well. And that's getting to a whole nother world. But I think they need to understand what that really means. But beyond those, like, let's take it back to the cyber aspect of things. One of the things that attackers do concentrate on is attacking cryptocurrency wallets. If you can attack the wallet and steal the actual cryptocurrency, that's obviously worth money to them. A lot of businesses that do invest in cryptocurrency or have any type of cryptocurrency holdings really don't understand how to secure their wallets. Sometimes they use online methods, which are fine. I mean, you are relying on the online provider or the cloud provider that's providing that wallet, or other customers that do understand details on cryptocurrency may keep complete offline wallets. Remember, a cryptocurrency is basically a math algorithm. It's a hash. It's a set of numbers. It doesn't matter if it's really digital online or if it's stored on a piece of paper in your drawer. As long as you have that number, you have that cryptocurrency. And so it's I think when you get into the dynamics of money and how it works, it's always a little interesting. But I want to stress to you, it's very common for people not to understand how to store cryptocurrency and get those wallets stolen or hijacked. And once that's done, it's gone. It's like cash. You're not going to get that back.
So we've talked a little bit about how we got to this point today with cybersecurity and how it's becoming, while still very specialized and highly technical, more and more people have to at least be aware of it so that they can act rapidly and properly when they encounter a problem. Look forward the next few years, Aamir, and give us some visibility into where you think the cybersecurity world's going to be. How is this going to play out if we think about 2020, 2021?
Wow, that's a loaded question. To keep it in context of this talk, we spoke a little bit about the darknet and its evolving marketplace, and maybe the darknet was responsible for a little bit of the ignition behind cyber cryptocurrencies. And I think cryptocurrencies, the good thing that came out of it was the blockchain, this public ledger, on basically keeping transactions public while keeping identities anonymous. I think the blockchain is very powerful even outside of cryptocurrencies when you're talking about sharing medical information and research and actually talking about verifying things or making a smart contract. A smart contract is basically a contract that will automatically execute on the internet based after certain conditions are met. I think based on those technologies, we're going to see some sort of evolution of how how cybersecurity and technology is really being integrated into our everyday lives. And I know people say, well, it's already integrated into our everyday lives, but I don't think you've seen anything yet. I mean, I think cybersecurity is going to be part of the ecosystem. It's not going to be a bolt-on product. It's going to have to be built in from day one, from design on everything that we do, whether it's from hard monitors and hard pumps to your smart TVs to, of course, your computers and data centers.
So last question, Amar, we had, or I introduced the segment by talking about how security used to be a feature of different products, and you mentioned this as well. And increasingly, it's becoming an asset, crucial asset of the business. Now, some companies are a little bit more orientated towards that perspective than others. I know Fortinet, for example, I would argue is very strongly oriented towards the idea that that security should be an asset and you have to invest in that appropriately. But identify some things that CIOs, CISOs, CDOs can do to try to up-level the stance within the business of security as an asset that combines both technology but also practice processes and people.
Right. No, that's a good point. You cannot think of security just as a bolt-on technology. I think that's very important. One of the things that we do at Fortinet, it's a practice that we preach, and I think a lot of professionals would agree with this, is that security has to be built all around your ecosystem. Your devices just can't be specialized add-on products. All your devices have to be participating in security. That's why at Fortinet we have what we call our security fabric, where it's not only our products but other products as well are continuously sharing information about blocking attacks and blocking threats, as well as providing visibility into corporations. And I think corporations kind of miss that sometimes. They're like, hey, I bought a product, I should be good, right? But they don't really understand what that product does, the effectiveness of that product, how well is it actually blocking the threats, and what is it not doing? What are the questions that you should be asking about the product or about the environment that you don't know about? And I think once you start building security as a fabric, embedded into an ecosystem, embedded into your business practices, right from everything from from your charter, from your board of directors, understanding cybersecurity, all the way down to the secretary that's opening up email links, understanding that, hey, I could be actually putting my company and my business at risk. I think once you start instilling that mindset, you become more successful.
But it's more than just it's more than just the technology. It's also you. How do people like you how does your insight, your expertise, your content get distributed and adopted as a consequence of relationships with Fortinet and obviously others as well?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really lucky. Our team of researchers, 200 plus researchers, looking for the most current threats, the most updated techniques that the hackers, that the bad guys, that cyber criminals are using. We're examining threats across the board from everything that you hear on the news. We're on top of it. And the nice thing is we digest all that information and we look at the inner workings of that information. And then we use advanced technologies such as artificial intelligence, neural networks, or just good old grease work on figuring out how to stop these attacks. And that brain power, that trust that we have, gets actually digested into all our products, and that's very important. Now, on top of just being smart guys that create good technology to stop that, we definitely believe that sharing is caring, and that's why we work with not only government agencies, not only with large businesses, but we also work with, I would say, even our competitors, and tell them right away, hey, when we see a problem, you guys look out for this problem. This could be a big deal. This could even affect your customers. And that's one of the reasons Fortinet was one of the founding members of the Cyber Threat Alliance, which is a lot of security vendors sharing information about threats and letting the technology speak for itself.
And a lot of very savvy large enterprises that have a major stake to play in the security world as well, again, successfully sharing their insight, because security, as you said, it's a team sport. It takes a village to secure a business, I guess you could say. Aamir Lakhani, lead researcher, Dr. Chaos, thanks very much for joining us in this CUBE conversation about cybersecurity, the darknet, cyber or cryptocurrencies, and some of the things that businesses have to worry about as they move forward and increase their activity and their dependency on digital technologies. Once again, this is Peter Burris, Wikibon. Been speaking with Aamir Lakhani of Fortinet. Hope you enjoyed this CUBE conversation.
Thanks.